Hello, I'm Dave Karger. Welcome back to TCM. Up next, 31 Days of Oscar continues with an Oscar-winning comedy from the brilliant and irreverent mind of Mel Brooks. From 1967, starring Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder, it's The Producers. The movie is built around a simple but ingenious idea. If a Broadway show flops and closes, the producers are off the hook and not required to repay the investors. With that in mind, producer Max Bialystock, played by Zero Mostel, decides he can turn around his failing career by raising a ton of money and producing a show that's guaranteed to flop. Joining him in this elaborate scam is his mild-mannered accountant, Leo Bloom, played by Gene Wilder, and together they find the perfect material to produce a play written by a former Nazi called Springtime for Hitler. As you know, if you've seen the movie, Springtime for Hitler is staged as a lavish musical number, an outrageous parody of classic production numbers from Busby Berkeley and the Ziegfeld Follies. Incredibly, The Producers was the first film that Mel Brooks ever made. He got his start in show business in the 1940s as a stand-up comic, then spent much of the 1950s writing for TV star Sid Caesar. With this comedy, Brooks became a filmmaker as well, and its original screenplay won him an Academy Award. Gene Wilder earned an Oscar nomination for his supporting performance. This was only Wilder's second movie after his debut in a small role in Bonnie and Clyde, released the same year. The Producers was the first time Wilder ever appeared in a prominent role, and it began a beautiful friendship and partnership between Wilder and Brooks that would yield more classics like Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, both of which also earned Mel Brooks Oscar nominations. He and Wilder shared the screenwriting nomination for Young Frankenstein. Here's their first collaboration from 1967 with a cast that also includes Dick Shawn, Kenneth Mars, and Estelle Winwood, The Producers. Mel Brooks won his only competitive Oscar for his original screenplay for The Producers. Also in his category that year, 2001: A Space Odyssey and The Battle of Algiers. I had the pleasure of interviewing him for my book, 50 Oscar Nights, and he told me that on the morning of the ceremony, quote, "I called everybody I knew in the world and said not to root for me because it was a waste of time. When I went over my competition, it just seemed impossible." But to the surprise of many, Brooks won, and he delivered a speech as hilarious and unforgettable as the film itself. He bounded up to the stage and opened with a classic one-liner, "I'll just say what's in my heart, ba-bump, ba-bump, ba-bump," then ended by acknowledging the priceless performance of his leading man, Gene Wilder. He said, "I'd also like to thank Gene Wilder. I'd also like to thank Gene Wilder. I'd also like to thank Gene Wilder." If you've never seen it, I highly recommend finding his speech on YouTube. It's classic Mel Brooks, witty, generous, and sweet. Reflecting on his win over 50 years later, he told me, "I thought that I didn't belong in that crowd. The Oscar told me that, yes, you belong in this business. It really gave me the courage to continue." Up next, Walter Matthau gives an Oscar-winning performance in the first comedy he made with Jack Lemmon, from director Billy Wilder in 1966.
Next on TCM, The Fortune Cookie, then Tootsie, and later, My Man Godfrey. Oscar gets his butler in gear tonight.